So you probably know these moments. They're the ones where you're staring at your bank account and you are thinking to yourself, this just isn't going to cut it. Well, I've had more than a few of those. And then it got to the point where I started thinking, what are the chances I could make it in Mexico on less than $1,000 a month? So hi, welcome, or welcome back to Morelia. My name is Dominique, and I have been here for a little over 4.5 months now. This was not a vacation. This was a survival strategy. I came here to make the money I had stretch while taking the time to focus on looking for work. I booked this apartment about a month before I left for Mexico. I could have gotten something cheaper, but I was trying to hold off while waiting for a job offer to come in. It never came in. While I was waiting, I watched the Airbnb platform and I saw many apartments that would have fit my needs that were $300 to $500 a month in this area. By the time I felt comfortable booking, though, this was one of the few that were left. It was near the holiday season and totally understandable, but it was also one of the highest apartments in the area. My Airbnb is in an area called Colonial Industrial, and it is a more local lived-in area. And yet I'm still only a 5-minute walk to the historic Central District. Now, to be honest, I couldn't have afforded to live there even if I had wanted to. Nor could I have afforded to stay in the higher end Los Americas area, which I wouldn't have wanted to because it's too far away from Central. This area is like a sweet spot. It's more affordable. You get more for your money. It's completely furnished and completely all-inclusive. And it's also dog-friendly. So I get all of those things that I needed, as well as access to the cultural events that I wanted. I originally booked this apartment for 2 months, but after arriving, I ended up deciding to extend my stay for the full length of my visa. I negotiated with my host and we dropped the price by $100 a month. And again, this is a fully furnished 2-bedroom apartment with a full kitchen. Not the hot plate that you're going to see in a lot of places. I do have an oven. So that was important to me. It includes all of the utilities, gas, electric, water, as well as the cable television, which I have yet to use, and 5G internet, which I use all the time. So I'm currently paying $693 a month. But I felt good about the amenities and the location. And my host has been wonderful. So that, of course, was the major monthly expense. And the next one, logically, is going to be my food and groceries. I usually spend about $100 to $150 a month if I'm splurging, and that does include my dog food and my paper products. But honestly, I don't eat a lot. I'm usually a 1 meal a day person. Not because I have to be, but because that's just the way I've been most of my life. I will have my coffee in the morning, and then I'll probably grab one big meal throughout the day. I do most of my grocery shopping at a local chain called Chedraui, but I also hit up the local markets a few times a week. There is a great tianguis that pops up here on Friday just down the street where you can get fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as some of the flea market type stuff, or clothing, purses, bags, you name it. So it's a great place to walk through and explore. So for example, down the street is a tortilleria, and I will get a kilo of tortillas, which is just over 2 pounds, for $1. I will also pick up a 4-pack of chorizo at the store, and that'll last me 4 meals, and it costs about $2.50. I can grab some avocados over at the Tianguis, which is usually $1 to $3 a kilo, depending on who you buy from that day. I would probably say my downfall is cheese. I put cheese on pretty much everything, and I can easily spend $3 to $5 a week on cheese. And then there are the triple chocolate chip muffins. That is a guilty pleasure for me. I will occasionally pick those up if I'm shopping late in the afternoon, and it is probably gone before I get home. But they're only about 50 cents and they're large, like the ones you might get at Starbucks. I would like to say this as a reminder that some of these things may seem cheap to you, especially if you're looking at this through a US dollar perspective. But please remember that the minimum wage here is $2 an hour, which means that the $3 taco plate may not feel especially cheap to the locals, but it does make it much easier for us to come and live on a budget. Now, I do take a thyroid prescription every month, and it is almost exactly what I was paying back in the United States. So that's about $30 a month for me. Didn't make much of an impact that way, but the process was certainly different. I got here and realized that my freshly filled bottle of pills was back in the medicine cabinet at the house. So if you want to learn how I had to quickly get my medication without a valid prescription, I'm going to be talking about that in next week's video. Back to the facts, that does cost me around $30 a month. Okay, so for the next expense, transportation. I drove here, right? I have a car. I parked the car the day I arrived and it hasn't moved since. Now, admittedly, I had a run-in with a police officer the very first day I arrived here in Morelia on my way to the Airbnb that scared me a little bit. That might have had something to do with the reason that my car sat for the first week or two. If you want to learn more about that, there is a previous video that talks about that experience and my other experiences. I will link it in the comments below. But honestly, it's just easier to walk. Or I can take one of the Combis, which are passenger vans. They hold maybe 12 people, and they're 50 cents a ride. If I want to go to another city, I jump on a coach bus. It's like riding a Greyhound bus. They're huge, they're comfortable, some of them have bathrooms, usually a movie playing. To go, let's say, from here to Pátzcuaro, which is about an hour's ride, maybe a little bit more, it cost me $3. Why mess with paying tolls or dealing with traffic or anything else when I can spend $3 and get where I need to go? Now, when I first got here, I did take a taxi twice. I actually arrived back from another city and it was dark. I wasn't sure where to catch the combi or whatever, and so I took a taxi back, and that also cost me $3 for about a 5 mile ride. I've done that twice. I'm one of those people that love to drive. That's why I enjoy being a gig driver. And I miss it. But I just don't see a need here. I might spend $20 a month on transportation if I'm going to another city. But most of the time, I don't spend anywhere near that. There's just no reason to. So what do I do when it comes to entertainment and fun? My family has asked me that plenty of times because they know I'm not one to sit at home. And no, I don't just spend all day, every day walking around the mall, although their mall is beautiful. And I do spend sometimes walking around there. But I also just enjoy walking around the city. There is a lot to see, as well as hitting the free museums or the low cost museums. There'll be music and art and entertainment in the parks. Sometimes they have concerts set up in the street where if you want to sit inside the roped area, you pay. But nobody is stopping you or telling you to go away from standing outside the roped area and enjoying the concert. The zoo is about $2.50, $4.50 if you want the deluxe ticket that includes the aquarium, the reptile house, and the train ride. So that was a fun experience. I enjoyed. Um, One of my splurges, I will buy myself a gazpacho. And no, I don't mean the soup. It is a large fruit-filled cup that has a combination of fruits, juices, cayenne pepper, and cheese. And yes, that sounds really weird, but it's delicious. I hope you get a chance to try one day. But that cost me about $3 to $4, and I will splurge on that. I enjoy those. I went to a wine, cheese, and bread tasting event here, and for less than $10, I got the entry plus a wine glass that I could take to each of the vendors, and they would put samples in. That was a great day out. My lifestyle here doesn't include a lot of shopping. I'm not going to drive it back through the border. I came here with a fully loaded car, so I don't really need to buy anything, especially clothes. Although I did buy a pair of Levi's for $10, as well as a six-pack of socks that cost me about $3. But otherwise, I don't really spend my money on stuff. I spend my money on experiences. I enjoy what the city has to offer. For clarity's sake, I do have a few expenses that are not factored into this $1,000 a month. Those are expenses that you probably would not have if you were moving here. I keep a storage unit back in Atlanta. Everything I owned went into that storage unit. If you were moving here, you probably wouldn't need one. I pay car insurance back in Georgia because it's required by law in order to keep my car registered that I have to have car insurance there, even if my car is in another country. So rather than risking canceling my registration and then renewing it when I came across the border again, I just keep it up. The other thing I keep is my cell phone bill. That is on a plan with my son. I'm not planning on giving up my US number, so that isn't something I've factored in. But a phone plan here would run you about $11 to $23 a month from what I've seen. I also paid for my Mexico visitor's car insurance for the year. I wasn't sure how long I was going to be here or how many times I might cross the border back and forth this year. So I just went ahead and paid for a full year. It cost me a little less than $400. If I had a car here, which I'm not sure I would get one, but if I did, I'm sure I would buy a local car and I would get local insurance and I would probably be a whole lot less. So living in Mexico on less than $1,000 a month, can it be done? Yes. Is it for everyone? Probably not. For me, my life has been more enjoyable, more comfortable, and certainly more indulgent than it was back home. And remember that the price of my Airbnb is much higher than what you could be paying, which would give you even more spending money in that $1,000 a month. So if you found any of this information helpful, or if it gave you any ideas, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. Yes, it does help the algorithm, but it also helps me get the information out to people who are considering a move like this. And if you want to learn about how I got my prescription filled here without a doctor's visit, maybe hit the subscribe button to remind you to tune in for next week's video. I would also personally appreciate it if you have any other budget saving tips, if you would leave them down in the comments, not only for my own sake, but maybe anybody else who's considering moving here could utilize them. I really would love to make this a community and not just a channel. So thank you for watching. What are the chances that I see you next week at the pharmacy? I hope they're really great.